Can you imagine planning your own funeral, not in a morbid, preemptive way, but because your own son, your flesh and blood, thought you were dead and was already dividing up your assets? That's what happened to me. One moment, I was recovering from a near-fatal accident in a hospital bed. The next, I was listening to my eldest son, Michael, on the phone, discussing the details of my wake, my burial, and how soon he could access my considerable inheritance. He didn't know I was alive. He thought I was gone. And frankly, after hearing what he had to say, a part of me wished I had been. Was I wrong for what I did next? For letting him believe it a little longer, just to see how far he would go? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same? Let me take you back to the beginning of this nightmare, or perhaps, the beginning of Michael's grand scheme. My name is Arthur, and I'm a man who, until recently, thought he had it all. A loving wife who passed away 5 years ago, 2 wonderful children, Michael and my daughter, Sarah, and a successful career that left me with a comfortable retirement and a sizable estate. Michael, my firstborn, was always ambitious. I always saw it as a positive trait, a drive to succeed, to make something of himself. He went to a good university, got a degree in business, and started working at a reputable financial firm. I was proud of him, genuinely. Sarah, on the other hand, was always the more artistic and free-spirited one. She pursued a career in graphic design, often struggling financially, but always happy and content with her choices. I always tried to treat them equally, but I admit, Michael's more conventional path, his focus on financial stability, always seemed to put him slightly ahead in my mind, a foolish prejudice I now deeply regret. I had drawn up my will years ago, leaving everything to be split equally between Michael and Sarah, with a few smaller bequests to charities and some distant relatives. I made sure it was clear, concise, and legally binding. I believed it was fair. The accident happened a few months ago. I was driving home from a golf game, a leisurely Sunday afternoon, when a distracted driver swerved into my lane. The impact was horrific. I remember a blinding flash of light, the screech of metal, and then darkness. I woke up in a hospital bed, disoriented and in considerable pain. I had suffered a severe concussion, a broken arm, several fractured ribs, and a punctured lung. It was touch and go for a while, the doctors told me later. I was in a coma for almost 2 weeks. When I finally regained consciousness, my first thought was of my children. I asked for them, eager to see their faces, to reassure them I was all right. But they weren't there. The nurses, kind but firm, told me I was still very weak and needed rest. They said they had informed my family. A few days later, while I was still quite groggy, a nurse brought me a phone. "Your son, Michael," she said, "he's been calling constantly. He sounds very worried." A wave of relief washed over me. At least he was concerned. I took the phone, my hand trembling slightly. "Michael, it's Dad." I rasped, my voice weak. There was a pause on the other end, a rather long and unsettling pause. Then Michael's voice, not worried, not relieved, but strained. "Dad, is that really you?" he asked, a strange edge to his tone. "Yes, son, it's me. I'm okay, I'm recovering. I just woke up." Another silence. Then he mumbled something about being busy and having to go. He promised to visit soon. It felt off. I dismissed it as him being overwhelmed with relief and perhaps a bit of shock. I didn't press him. I truly believed he was just shaken. Sarah, on the other hand, arrived the very next day. She burst into my room, tears streaming down her face, throwing her arms around me in a tight embrace. "Dad, oh my God, Dad, I thought I'd lost you." She sobbed, her voice thick with emotion. She had driven for hours, having been away on a work trip when the accident happened. She told me she had been frantically trying to reach Michael, who had been vague and unhelpful, only telling her that I was not doing well, and that she should prepare herself for the worst. He hadn't told her I had woken up, or that I was recovering. This struck me as incredibly odd. Why would he keep that from his own sister? Why would he let her suffer, believing I was on my deathbed? Sarah stayed with me for days, sleeping in a chair by my bedside, helping me with everything, reading to me, just being there. Her presence was a balm to my soul, a stark contrast to Michael's strange absence. It was during one of Sarah's short breaks, when she had stepped out to grab a coffee, that I overheard the conversation that would change everything. The hospital room next to mine had its door slightly ajar, and the walls, it seemed, were not as soundproof as one might hope. I heard Michael's voice, clear as day, on the phone. Yes, the funeral home confirmed the platinum package. No expense spared, obviously. He was a good man, deserved the best. My blood ran cold. The platinum package, funeral home, he was talking about my funeral. I strained to listen, my heart pounding in my chest. And the inheritance, have you talked to the lawyer? I need to know the timeline. Sarah's going to be a problem, you know how she is. All emotional. She'll want to grieve, I'll want to get things sorted. I've already got a buyer lined up for the lake house, and the stock portfolio needs to be liquidated before the market dips any further. I couldn't believe my ears. He wasn't just planning my funeral. He was already liquidating my assets, discussing my inheritance, all while I was lying there, alive, in the next room. And the way he spoke about Sarah, she'll want to grieve. As if grieving was an inconvenience, a hurdle to overcome before he could get his hands on my money. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. The pain from my injuries suddenly felt insignificant compared to the crushing weight of this betrayal. I listened on, a silent, unseen ghost, as he meticulously detailed his plans. He had already spoken to the lawyer, making arrangements based on what he believed was my last will and testament, confirming that he had handled all necessary paperwork. He even mentioned a life insurance policy, one I hadn't even remembered I had, discussing how the pay-out would cover the extravagant funeral and still leave a substantial sum for him. He talked about my antique watch collection, how he planned to sell them individually to maximize profit, and even my old car, a classic Mustang I cherished, which he intended to list online. Immediately, it was a methodical, chilling dismantling of my life, all for his own gain. He truly believed I was dead, and he was reveling in it. When Sarah returned, I didn't say anything. I just lay there, pretending to be asleep, trying to process the enormity of what I had heard. My son, my own son, had not only allowed his sister to believe I was dying, but had actively started arranging my funeral and dividing my estate. He hadn't even bothered to confirm my death. He had simply assumed and then acted. The anger, the hurt, the profound disappointment was overwhelming. It was a physical ache, worse than any broken bone. I realized then that his ambition was not a drive for success, but a ruthless, self-serving greed that knew no bounds. Over the next few days, I feigned weakness, keeping my conversations with Michael brief and vague. He still called occasionally, always asking about my condition, but never offering to visit. He'd say things like, "Are you comfortable, Dad? Don't strain yourself. We'll handle everything here." It was a thinly veiled attempt to keep me out of the loop, to ensure I didn't interfere with his plans. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to be my rock, my constant companion. She would read to me, help me with my physical therapy exercises, and bring me my favorite foods. She even decorated my sterile hospital room with drawings and cheerful cards from her artist friends. It was during these quiet moments with her that a plan started to form in my mind. A plan that was perhaps a little cruel, a little dramatic, but one I felt was entirely justified. I couldn't let Michael get away with this. I couldn't let him desecrate my memory and betray my trust so completely. I decided to play along, to let him continue to believe I was gone, and then, at the opportune moment, to reappear. I began to work with Sarah, explaining my suspicions to her. At first, she was shocked, then heartbroken, and finally, furiously angry. She couldn't believe her brother, the one she had always looked up to, could be capable of such calculated cruelty. We decided to keep my recovery a secret, even from the hospital staff, fabricating a story about transferring me to a private facility for specialized care. With Sarah's help, and the discretion of a few trusted nurses who understood the gravity of the situation, I was discharged quietly. I didn't go home. Instead, I went to Sarah's small apartment, a place where Michael rarely visited, assuming it was beneath him. I spent weeks there, recovering, growing stronger, meticulously planning my return. We hired a private investigator to document Michael's actions, gathering undeniable proof of his schemes. The investigator quickly confirmed our worst fears. Michael had indeed taken steps to liquidate assets, had tried to bypass legal procedures regarding the will, and was even making plans to sell my beloved lake house, a place where we had spent countless family summers, claiming it was for estate expenses. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted him immediately, or would you have, like me, waited for the perfect moment to reveal yourself? The day of my funeral arrived, a crisp autumn morning. It was held at the grand old church where my wife and I had been married, and where she had been laid to rest. I watched from a discreet distance, hidden in a tinted window car as the mourners arrived. There were many familiar faces, old friends, colleagues, distant relatives. And there, at the front, was Michael, dressed in a somber black suit, his face a picture of dignified grief. Sarah was there too, her face genuinely etched with sorrow, though she knew the truth. It was a bizarre, surreal experience, attending my own funeral. I watched as people offered their condolences to Michael, who accepted them with a mournful nod, occasionally dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. He even gave a eulogy, a performance worthy of an Oscar, recounting fabricated stories of my imagined final days, portraying himself as the dutiful, grieving son. He spoke of my generosity, my unwavering support, my love for my family. Every word was a dagger to my heart, dripping with hypocrisy. As the ceremony concluded, and the pallbearers began to carry my empty casket down the aisle, I knew it was time. Sarah, who had strategically positioned herself near the back, caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. I took a deep breath, the adrenaline coursing through me. I pushed open the church doors, stepping out into the sunlight. For a moment, no one noticed, then a gasp, then another. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd as I slowly, deliberately, began to walk down the aisle. My broken arm was still in a sling, a visible reminder of my ordeal, but I held my head high. I could feel every eye on me, every jaw dropping. The pallbearers, startled, nearly dropped the casket. Michael, who was walking just ahead of the casket, turned at the sudden commotion. His eyes widened, his face draining of all color. He looked like he had seen a ghost, and in a way, he had. I walked directly towards him, my gaze unwavering. The silence in the church was deafening, broken only by the occasional choked sob or gasp of disbelief. When I was just a few feet away, I stopped. "Michael," I said, my voice clear and firm, It seems I've missed my own funeral." His mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. He looked utterly terrified, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes. He stammered, "Dad, but how? The doctors, they said." I cut him off. "The doctors were wrong, weren't they? Or perhaps you chose to believe what was convenient for you." The crowd was murmuring now, a buzz of confusion and shock. Sarah stepped forward, putting a comforting hand on my good arm. "Michael, you told me Dad was gone. You told everyone he was gone," she accused, her voice laced with pain. Michael finally found his voice, though it was a desperate, panicked whisper. "Dad, I can explain. It was a misunderstanding. I genuinely thought you were. I didn't let him finish. You thought I was dead, and you wasted no time in planning to strip my estate clean, didn't you, son? You were already selling my house, liquidating my investments, all before my body was even cold. You even arranged for a platinum package funeral. I heard you on the phone, very thoughtful of you." His face was a mask of horror. He stammered, "No, Dad, never. I was just making arrangements for when you I wanted to honor your wishes." "My wishes?" I scoffed. "My wishes included treating your sister with respect, not trying to cut her out of her inheritance. My wishes included a modest farewell, not an extravagant display to justify your early access. My wealth." I then produced the stack of documents the private investigator had gathered. "These are records of your phone calls, your meetings with the lawyer, your attempts to sell my property, all under the false pretense of my death. You tried to forge signatures, Michael. You tried to defraud your own family. The weight of the evidence, presented so publicly, was undeniable." The murmurs in the church grew louder, turning into shocked gasps and angry whispers. Friends who had just offered him condolences now looked at him with disgust. The fallout was swift and devastating for Michael. I immediately disinherited him, removing him entirely from my will. The lawyer, a man who had worked with my family for years, was horrified by Michael's actions and quickly helped me revise my estate plan. All of Michael's schemes to sell my assets were halted, and any money he had already managed to seize was recovered. The revelation of his deceit spread like wildfire through our community. He lost his job at the financial firm, his reputation in tatters. Many of our mutual friends, deeply offended by his heartless actions, cut ties with him. He was ostracized, left with nothing but the consequences of his own greed. He tried to appeal, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but the trust was shattered beyond repair. Sarah, on the other hand, was my steadfast support throughout the entire ordeal. She helped me rebuild my life, not just financially, but emotionally. I revised my will, leaving the bulk of my estate to Sarah, and a significant portion to various charities, including one that supports victims of financial fraud. I also set up a trust for any future grandchildren, ensuring that Sarah's children would be provided for. The lake house, which Michael had so eagerly tried to sell, is now Sarah's, a place where she can create her own happy memories. My classic Mustang, my cherished watch collection, all of it will go to her. I finally understood who my true child was, who truly valued me, not my possessions. It's been a few months since the funeral. I'm fully recovered, both physically and, mostly, emotionally. The pain of Michael's betrayal still lingers, a dull ache in my heart, but it's tempered by the immense gratitude I feel for Sarah, and the clarity this ordeal brought. It taught me a harsh but vital lesson about character, about true family, and about the deceptive nature of appearances. I learned that sometimes the greatest treasures in life aren't things, but the genuine love and loyalty of those who truly care. So, that's my story. A son who arranged his father's funeral to take his inheritance, only for the dead father to reappear. It's a tale I never thought I'd tell, but one that has forever changed my perspective on life and family. I hope my experience can serve as a cautionary tale. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories that prove truth is often stranger, and sometimes much more painful, than fiction. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.